Hi, this is Dr. Geneva, and welcome to another episode of Ignite to Impact. Born to drug-addicted parents, suffering from mental illness, low self-esteem, and even attempting suicide, Dorinda Walker, now corporate vice president, shares with us her pathway to success and how she overcame all of her challenges. Learn how she uses vision, goal setting, and strategic thinking to overcome and be successful.
Welcome to Ignite to Impact, a weekly podcast about next generation leadership and what it takes to make a difference at work, with family, and in your community. Get ready to be inspired as we pull back the curtain and dive into intimate and energetic conversations with achievers and doers who are in the trenches navigating workplace politics and influencing change. Get ready to hear how leaders fail and get back up, learning how to keep it together while traveling in their leadership journey. Our mission: to help you with leadership tips and strategies that you can use to get fast results and help make your business, community, and world a better place. Now, here's your host, Master Leadership Strategist, Dr. Geneva Williams. So, let's ignite to impact.
Hello, welcome. This is Dr. Geneva, and I am here once again with you for a fascinating, awesome conversation as we explore and kind of figure out how we can do incredible things, because we talk to ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things and facing all kinds of challenges, but staying vibrant, being vibrant. And today it's my extreme pleasure to have a conversation with Dorinda Walker, who is Vice President at Prudential Financial, Inc., an inspirational warrior, survivor, community advocate, and she also is an author. Her first book, Protected by Purpose, dove into her life story and provides those kinds of success secrets that allowed her to transition from a path to prison as a teenager to becoming one of the fastest rising brands in corporate America. So we want to hear all about her story, her secrets, and her success. Good morning and welcome, Dorinda.
Thank you, Dr. Good morning.
So start out by just telling us a little bit more about you.
So I am a wife, mother, grandmother, corporate executive, author, and motivational speaker. But my path to get there was quite complex. Being born to heroin-addicted parents, and I suffered the consequences of their disease because they made bad choices because of their addiction. So early on, my dad ended up going to jail for murder. My mom got into an abusive relationship with a man she met in rehab. And as a result, he physically and mentally abused me. So I went from a straight-A honor roll student to an at-risk youth. I had low self-esteem. I was angry. I was full of rage. And by the time I was freed from the abuse, when my dad came home from prison, he was diagnosed with AIDS, and this is in the 80s, less than a year after being released from prison. So I knew that heroin was the only thing that was keeping him functioning. So I decided to drop out of high school in the 10th grade. I became a drug distributor. I had runners who were working for me in the projects. I made anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a day. I was running with the wrong crowd, ended up into a relationship with a man 10 years my senior who was a bigger drug dealer than me. And so I started helping him with his business. And when my dad died, I became severely depressed. I attempted suicide twice. And second time, I woke up in a psych ward, spent 6 weeks there, was released into my paternal grandparents' care with every intention on finishing what I had started. And God sent my great-grandmother to me as an angel to tell me he had a vision, plan, and purpose for my life. And it took about 20 years of going through the process of changing my circumstances, putting in the work with fortitude, to really honor God's vision for me, and my faith and understanding that I was more than a woman that didn't have morals or integrity, that I was worthy of living a good life.
What a story. So, Dorinda, of course, I have 1,000 questions, but let me start. You talked about bad choices, and you admitted early on, young in life, you made bad choices. Talk a little bit about not only the bad choices, but how, in looking back, how do you not make bad choices?
That's a good question, because when you're surrounded in an environment where all you feel is demotivation, dysfunction and despair, you make choices because you think that there's no hope. And when you feel like there's no hope, you don't care about the consequences of your actions. How can I get any piece of joy or happiness or personal fulfillment in the now? And for me, I made bad decisions because I had low self-esteem, looking for love, and using my sexuality and being very promiscuous to fulfill a void in my life, because I felt like no one loved me and I was starving for that attention and that love. So that was, and I think a lot of young women suffer from that. And you have to understand, if you don't have spiritual grounding and faith, that it's really easy to make those decisions. So, I was fortunate in that I had bad examples, but I also had people who poured into my life and showed me what was possible. And I think if you have that, then you need to make a choice at some point.
So that's interesting. You're saying, how you say when you think there's no hope, you really don't think about the consequences. So you had someone who came into your life, some circumstances that showed you perhaps there's a little bit of hope, so that what you do might matter.
Exactly. So I had parts of my family who were in that street life and who thought it was glamorous, and who I looked up to because they had fast money, they had nice material things. And I also had family members who were hardworking, middle-class individuals who lived a good life, who didn't, succumb to making bad choices and doing illegal things to earn a living. So I saw what was possible on both sides of the spectrum. And at some point I had to make a choice. Did I want to continue living that street life, or did I want to buckle down and do the right thing and earn my money honestly and live a good life?
So Dorinda, take us back to that moment. So you're at this crossroads, and as you say, you were faced with a choice. Take us back to that moment. What made you decide to go on that path to changing your life and making a difference?
Well, there were several things that happened in my life, but the first one was when God sent my great-grandmother to me to tell me. So I called my maternal grandmother, who was a professional woman in the healthcare industry, asked her to get me a job. And at the time, I wasn't 18, so she took a big risk, and we forged my birth certificate so that I could get a job.
Okay.
But, I was used to making $3,000 to $5,000 a day, and I was making $300 a week. So I still had my foot in the street. So I could make fast money. And 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, I was going to the club with my friends, and police rolled up on us. We were in the project and frisked me, threw me on the wall and frisked me. And I heard the voice of God say to me, "You're going to be 18 in 2 weeks. You're either going to die or go to jail. What is it going to be?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I knew that I had to take myself out of that environment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the next day, I called my aunt who lived in the suburbs, and I said, "Can you please come get me? I need to get out of here."
Mm-hmm.
And once I left that environment, I never looked back.
Okay. Okay. So now, so tell us what happened. So, hey, you left that environment. Tell us what happened to you, Dorinda, in the next years.
So during that time, my mother was missing after my dad had died. So I was going through this process of grieving because I thought she was dead. And I'm working in the hospital. I meet my future husband. Things are going really good with me. I'm living a quote-unquote normal life. And all of a sudden, I get reunited with my mother because I get a phone call that she's been arrested for prostitution, and I need to go bail her out, me and my grandmother. And that was also a defining moment for me because, here it is. I thought she was dead, and come to find out she's prostituting, and I couldn't understand how that happened because my mother was a heroin addict, but she was always a functioning addict who worked, and, she had a career as a paralegal. So I couldn't understand how this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, she had got addicted to crack after my dad died, and she told me about 15 years ago when she was diagnosed with cancer that the reason why she started using crack after my dad died was because she assumed that she had HIV because everyone she shared needles with had died of AIDS.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when the doctor took the test and the test came back, she never had it.
Uh-huh.
And that's when God said to me, never put your fear over your faith. Because had my mother had the courage just to take a test, her life would have been so different. So she basically tortured herself for almost 2 years for something that never even existed.
Okay, that was a heavy life lesson. Dorinda, you've had a lot of life lessons. Let me just say that if you're just joining us, I'm having a conversation with Dorinda Walker, an international inspirational warrior, survivor, community advocate, vice president of Prudential Financial, who's sharing with us her life stories, her life lessons, and from a life where she had, as she says, had made bad choices, but now she's on a phenomenal path. And so we want to hear about that. So Dorinda, tell us, so you're vice president of Prudential Financial. How'd you get there?
I started out as a temp, leaving the healthcare industry. I had actually climbed the ladder of success in healthcare. I was director of patient employee services for a mid-sized home health care company. And it was like having my own business. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I had just had my second child. And my husband, he's like, something has to give, your career or your family. So I chose family and thought I would get a regular 9-to-5 and started as a temp at Prudential and did well as a temp, got recommended for a permanent position in medical underwriting. Then I went to disability claims, life insurance, was put into a leadership development program, and started volunteering for diversity and inclusion initiatives, where I really found my passion for wanting to give back to women and communities of color. Mm-hmm. And wrote a proposal as to why the company should focus on women in multicultural markets. It was adopted and supported by the executive leadership. And in 2012, the Multicultural Marketing Department was formed. And I essentially had a job that I loved and loved what I did. And that's when my career really, really thrived. And I became the vice president of consumer strategy and key initiatives. And now I'm vice president of cultural insights and activation for brand marketing and advertising. So it's been a journey. The company's been really good to me. I'm so grateful for the leadership and believing that someone like me could achieve as much as I have, and putting the resources into helping me flourish. really a godsend when you think about someone like me who has a GED education, to go from where, start from the bottom and work my way up. I think it's an inspiring story for others to know that there's nothing that's impossible as long as you put in the work to make it happen and you have faith that you can. And one of the things that my earlier life, all of those tests that I had to go through were necessary to prepare me for my career in corporate America.
Okay. Now, why do you say that? Why were they necessary? Because
had I not gone through the things that I went through, because corporate America is tough, especially in financial services. I see a lot of women at the top, let alone women of color. So I had to be comfortable with taking strategic risks. I had to be comfortable with understanding that some of the things that you go through in corporate America are nothing compared to the things I went through in life. So when it allowed me to put things in perspective. It allowed me to use that fight that I had within me, and to be strategic, and to learn how to fight my battles. So one story I'll share with you: when I was around 16, I asked my grandmother, my mother's mother, who went through a bitter divorce after 36 years of marriage, 6 kids, came home and a woman answered the door and said, "I moved in, you moved out, your stuff is on the truck." And I said to my grandmother, "Why didn't you beat that woman up? Why didn't you?"
Right. I'm with you.
And she said to me, and it was something I'll never forget, she said, "Baby, in life you have to learn how to pick your battles. I didn't belong in the gutter with the pigs, and quite frankly, he wasn't worth it if he would treat me that way."
Yes. Life lesson. Yes.
And in corporate America, it was that advice was, so profound for me. Learn how to pick your battles, know when to fight, and know when just to step back. It's been very helpful for me because I fought for things that I really believed in and things that really didn't matter. I learned how to pull back, and that got me the respect and also being strategic. I think as women, we have an innate skill to be strategic. My good friend Michelle Thornton wrote a book called Strategic and Strategic 2.0, and she talks about our innate skills and if we put our mind to it and plan properly, how we can accomplish almost anything. And I truly believe that as women. So I'm fortunate to be part of, the Empowered Woman Tribe.
So help our listeners understand what you mean when you say strategic. What does that mean?
So it means that you really have to be thoughtful.
Okay.
And so let me step back. When God puts a vision in your head, it's up to you to make it happen, right? So a lot of people have dreams and say, I want to do this or I wish I could do that. And I'm a firm believer, when God puts a vision in your head, put in the work with fortitude to make it happen. And that requires that you have a plan. You write down what your goals are, what your objectives are, who and what you need to get it done, and then you put in the work to make it happen.
I love it.
It's not always going to turn out the way you anticipated. You could fail, but you're going to learn something from that failure. And it doesn't mean that you're not supposed to keep going. Or it can turn out bigger and better than you ever imagined. And I'll take me, for instance. When I wrote that proposal, I thought that we would have a couple of little events at work and that'll be that. I never imagined that it would turn into a department. I would be promoted to vice president, and I would do the work that I love. So you never know, but if you don't attempt to do it, you'll live a life of regret.
Yes, and the whole idea, Dorinda, about having that vision, I do believe that that's a real critical step in being successful, that you have this dream or this picture of the ideal, what it is you want to accomplish, what you dream, hope to accomplish. But you said a very important part that then you have to put a plan into action, the steps. You got to have, that dream got to have some legs. And have goals and things that you can implement. And so that's your definition of strategic. I love it. And so that's helped. So do you talk about that in your book, Protected by Purpose? I know that you, in your book, you share your life story like you've just shared with us, but you also give some success secrets.
Yeah, so at the end of every chapter, I do a letter to the readers.
Oh,
and
okay.
I talk about the lessons I learned from those experiences, looking back. And, the impetus behind me writing the book is, when I first started sharing my story, people were saying, oh, you better not, share it. You're going to get fired. Corporate America's not going to embrace it. But when I saw the impact it was having with men and women, coming up to me saying, oh, my goodness, I went through a similar experience. I remember the first time I shared it, it was at Dr. Story's church, First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens in New Jersey. It was a women's luncheon, 200 women. I spoke and shared my story for a half hour. Literally 50 women stood in line and waited up to an hour to speak to me. And the first woman said, no one knows this, but I've been contemplating suicide for the past couple of days. Mm-hmm. But after hearing you speak, I know that's not what God wants me to do. Mm-hmm. And it was those affirmations that told me, okay, I need to write this book. Mm-hmm. And it was one experience in corporate America that I'll never forget, because I was still holding on to the baggage and shame of my past. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I didn't want colleagues to ask me about my upbringing or what school I went to. And I was at a women's empowerment event, and my colleague said to me, Dorinda, all of these young women are asking to be introduced to you. And I said, why? Do I look unapproachable? Why don't they just come and say hello? And she said, Dorinda, do you realize that you've made it? You're that executive that you used to aspire to be. You've made it. And I had to think about it. And then I heard God say to me, I don't know why you're worried about what other people think or other people's judgment of you when I've already qualified you. I've already been qualified by God. So because there's no other reason why I'm in that position, and other than God's grace and glory on my life. So I had to let go of the shame, and I talk a lot about that in the book. Okay. And live in my purpose. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so, and the title of your book is Protected by Purpose. So I'm hearing that the purpose gives you a sense of direction, lays out what you need to do. But this protected part, is that, do you also talk about how being purpose-driven, knowing your assignment, that helps you get through all the battles as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, throughout the book, I outline every aspect of where it could have turned out differently, but God sent someone or something to intercede every time. So, I am so grateful that I listened. Because a lot of times people don't listen to the messages that God is sending to you, because I knew that my parents were good people who made bad decisions. Okay. I know that a lot of people live with family members who are suffering from addiction and don't know how to forgive them for those choices. And even when you understand it, it's a disease. So one of the things that I'm proud about is that, so many women and a couple have reached out to me and said, after reading your book, I reached out to a family member or a friend and started that process of forgiveness. And for me, that is so gratifying because, even with my parents' addiction, my dad died when I was 16, and I didn't have the opportunity to give him my forgiveness. In fact, I write in the book, the last thing I said to him before he died was that I hated him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was able to give my mother a gift that I wasn't able to give my dad, because she, in her final days, didn't feel like she was worthy of me taking care of her. She spent her final days of her life in hospice care in my home. And we had, reconnected, bonded, and were thriving in our relationship. And I couldn't understand why she felt that way, but she was still holding on to the guilt and the shame of the things that I had to go through because of her choices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the last chapter in my book is 7 lessons inspired by Weesey, who was my mother. And it's one of the proudest things in the book for me, to show that even though there was some dysfunction, there was still such a love and bond between me and my mother.
Yes. Would you share one of those lessons with us?
Sure. So I talked about shame. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lesson 2.
Mm-hmm.
Have standards for who and what you accept in your life.
Okay.
So, when my mother realized she had become addicted to crack, she made a conscious decision to remove herself from my life. And I did not realize it then, but she made this sacrifice to ensure that she did not derail my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I go on to talk about, all of that. But that, I think we have to have standards for who and what we accept in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say it's okay to love people from a distance, particularly family, because family isn't always your friend. And sometimes they can be your dream killers. Sometimes you can be caught in a lot of dysfunction. And it's okay to love them, but not take them along with where you're going in your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dorinda Walker, so you've thank you for sharing your life story, and more importantly, I think sharing your successes. So you're you're a survivor, you're a warrior, you're in the corporate world, hold a fabulous position. You're a wife and a mother, and certainly many in the community have recognized you, because I see that as I look at your list of awards, you've been named as one of the top 25 influential Black women in business. You've been recognized by Forbes as one of the top Black leaders and speakers in the country. You've just gotten accolades. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm touring the country and abroad, sharing my story and empowering and inspiring people who are going through what they feel are insurmountable circumstances, to know by my example that this is just a moment in time. They are worthy and capable of living a life of joy and prosperity, because the book was just provided me a platform to, I think, encourage and empower the masses. So that's what I'm really focused on right now. And also I'm thinking about, by the end of the year, starting a nonprofit to help women and children who are, suffering from things that are directly related to poverty or gender inequity, to help empower and uplift them with training and education and things like that. So that's next on the horizon, and I'm really excited about the future and what's possible.
Oh, that sounds so exciting. And I just certainly appreciate folk like you who, all you've come through, all you've accomplished, you're living your life to the fullest, and you're still giving back and thinking about ways that you can, in fact, make a difference in the community. Do you think that giving back, that, finding a way to serve others is part of your success and what helps keep you vibrant?
Absolutely. I think for everyone in this life, part of your purpose is to serve and give back to others. How you choose to do that is going to differ based on your talents and your gifts. So mine is sharing my story of overcoming the odds. And, I feel really great about the work and what I'm doing, and know that I'm honoring, the assignment that God has given to me.
The assignment. I love it. And knowing your assignment, and that has so much to do with purpose and who we are and whose we are and what we think is important in life. Well, Dorinda Walker, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You have taken us on a worldwide journey from your path, starting as a young person and facing so much, being born to heroin-addicted parents and surviving the physical abuse and your suicide attempts, to finding better choices and coming to that crossroad and having people step into your life who helped you make better decisions, and now as vice president in the corporate world, wife, mother, award-winning corporate executive, author, and soon-to-be nonprofit executive. Such a wonderful delight and pleasure to have you with us. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Well, sure. I'd like to tell everybody how they can follow me and find me.
So, yes, please.
My website is dorindawalker.com, and I am Dorinda Walker on all social media. And I think my parting words would be, and I want to be thoughtful about this, but I think my parting words would be, only the will of God will take you where the grace of God can keep you. So whatever trial or tribulation you're going through, know that it's only temporary and God will bring you through.
How wonderful. So that's Dorinda Walker, Dorinda Walker, WALKER.com. And on all her social media, you can find her as Dorinda Walker, warrior, survivor, advocate, protected by purpose. Thank you so much, Dorinda, for being with us and sharing your insights and thoughts as all of us try to be better, try to walk in purpose, and keep being vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been listening to Ignite to Impact with your host, Dr. Geneva Williams, an award-winning executive, facilitator, and master leadership strategist. Dr. Geneva is passionate about inspiring others to get their own leadership on and empowering the next generation with leadership tools and tips to help make the world a better place. Sign up to download Dr. Geneva's audiobook on leadership. Get the show notes, links, and other resources at drgenevaspeaks.com. That's drgenevaspeaks.com. Thanks for listening. Please share this podcast to those in your community via Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Google+, and leave us a 5-star review in iTunes. When you do that, it helps others find the show better. Send your questions or comments to info@drgenevaspeaks.com and use the hashtag Ignite2Impact.